Skrmetta Show podcast. Welcome. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We are filming on a Monday, and we are got a lot going on. To be honest, have a lot happening. There's a ton of stories to get through here. A lot of them are sports. A lot of them are sports related, but we touch on a little bit of everything. We're talking about the Jordan documentary. Not so much about the documentary, but just some things that came out of it. Jordan's gambling addiction. We're going to talk about the flu game, which is now the pizza game. We're talking Greta Thunberg's return to CNN, some Corona updates, how that may affect the NFL. We're all over the shop. And before we get into that, let's do a little bit of housekeeping here. If you watched the Q&A or listened to the Q&A that we did last week, first of all, I thought it was very successful as far as the content itself. What was not successful was the technical aspect of it. That was our first time using our new DSLR camera and our new shotgun microphone. We learned a lot about DSLR cameras in that time span. First thing we learned was that they cannot record more than 29 minutes and 59 seconds at a given time, which sounds insane in 2020, but that's just how it works. So at 29 minutes 59 seconds, I have to go and manually click record. I have to go and do it every single time. So really what it's made for is 10, 15 minute videos, go on and we rock and roll. But I didn't know that. So I recorded the whole 2-hour podcast. We did every question. And then went to edit it hours later, realized that we only had 29 minutes and 59 seconds of it. I didn't realize what the problem was. So I thought we just had some timer messed up or some thing messed up. So then I re-recorded. So I do 2 more hours of the podcast with the exact same questions. So reiterate all the questions. Go back. Exact same situation. 29 minutes, 59 seconds. So then I started to research what the hell's the problem. Then I realized that we had the 30-minute situation. So then we had to go back and do it again to where we recorded it. So I recorded the Q&A 3 times, the exact same questions, and for probably 6 hours, 5 hours of talking. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. Then on top of all that, we go back and we're doing the editing, and I realized there's a hiss. There's an audio hiss in the recording because we only used the shotgun mic, the new one. And so then I looked up that. Turns out you have to turn the gain or whatever, the audio, way down on the DSLRs because the DSLR camera itself has an internal hiss. So if the shotgun mic is hooked up to the camera, it'll pick up that internal hiss. So if you listen to the podcast, it was very obvious. I listened to most of all the podcasts we put out to make sure the quality is good. And that one pissed me off more than any podcast because, I noticed the hiss and hated it. On YouTube, it's not too bad. On YouTube, you can't really tell, but on podcasts, you certainly can tell. So I apologize for that. If you made it through it, good Lord, you are an angel. Send me an invitation to your wedding. I will be there with bells on. So this is our second time doing that. So you will see edits in this podcast as far as you will see stop-starts where I will have to go and turn the camera off, turn it back on, depending on how long we do this. So I have a timer going here, a timer going here to keep me on track. So if you do see edits, we don't usually do edits. That's what those are for. And then we are also recording 2 audios. We changed the settings for the shotgun mic, and we have a backup just in case all hell breaks loose. So I think we're good. I think we have it figured out. It's a lot more of work on the back end, but who cares? That's what whatever. So okay, so that's that. How are we doing? How are we doing out there in Corona land and pandemic land? It's getting weirder. It's getting weirder, ladies and gentlemen. It's getting weirder by the damn day. We've been talking about this. We've been doing this at least one podcast a week for the entire year, but we've been doing coronavirus podcasts since Mardi Gras, which was the end of February. So the first podcast we did after February was unintentionally the first podcast of coronavirus. And I mean, you're talking over 2.5 months. And it's crazy to see how everything has changed. I mean, everything went from how serious is Corona. I mean, I remember we were doing podcasts in hotel rooms. We were doing a podcast it was Dallas. I think Dallas might have been the first one. I can't remember. It was either Dallas or Atlanta. We were in a Dallas or Atlanta hotel room doing a podcast talking about how serious really is coronavirus. And when you think about that, that's only 2.5 months ago. We go from in a hotel that we flew to, talking about this Chinese virus, this Wuhan virus, this bat soup virus, this, whatever. You eat a couple sand shrews, you may have the virus. We go from that to, okay, well, this potentially could come to America. And then, okay, well, is it the flu? What do you do? How bad is it? We go from that to shut it down. Okay. Then we go from shut it down for 2 weeks, see what happens, to, all right, we're shutting it down for a full month. Then we go to flatten the curve. Then we go to find a vaccine. The insanity of it all. I mean, it was crazy when Madonna was in her bathtub with rose petals. That was nuts. This is crazier. I miss Madonna. I miss watching Madonna sing in her almond milk bathtub or whatever the hell was going on. We are in a full-on simulation now. I mean, it doesn't get any crazier. Eddie Bravo, if you don't know who Eddie Bravo is, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu former world champion, one of the greatest ever, an innovator. He's a podcaster. He's a conspiracy theorist. What a guy. Eddie Bravo, he was saying the other day, we're in the conspiracy. This is it. There is no conspiracy theory. We're in the damn conspiracy. Now, I'm not asking you to believe in some crazy JFK hoax. I'm not asking you to believe in some insane 9/11 hoax or Sandy Hook hoax, because those sure would be crazy if those were true, wink, wink. But all I'm saying is, it's different. All I'm saying is, what is going on in this world right now has absolutely never gone on in the history of the universe. We are in a history time. Nothing has ever been crazier. Nothing probably will ever be crazier. Could you imagine if December 25th, Christmas Day, I told you, hey man, Merry Christmas. By the way, in 3 months, not even really, in less than 3 months, I will say 3 months, in 3 months, the whole world will all come together to agree to shut down for coronavirus, or for a virus, for a flu, for a whatever, however you want to phrase it, for an influenza thing or whatever it is. I'm not a doctor. And I told you, everywhere from Italy to Alabama to California to New York, every single place, every single business, every single sporting league, every single thing will shut down. Planes won't fly, cruise ships won't run, sports won't happen, food won't be made. You would think I was insane. And I would think I was insane. But not only did it happen, we're living in the middle of it, and we're almost 3 months in. And it's getting crazier. It's getting more insane. How insane? How insane? California, this was actually on my notes. I had this as last, and now we're doing this first. So sometimes the podcast just goes off the rails, man. But how insane? California has extended their stay-at-home orders until August. It is May 18th, ladies and gentlemen. It's May 18th. Imagine if you live in Los Angeles and you get told, you're already 2 months into this thing, and you get told, okay, you now have to stay at home until August at minimum, and then we'll figure out what happens there. No telling what happens there. I mean, it's getting to the point now where it's like, what exactly is happening? I'll tell you how crazy it is. My parents and people their age, and just like that generation, is starting to wonder what the hell is going on. And they're starting to look around and say, maybe we're not being told the truth. Maybe something is afoot here. Maybe this who can I trust? What is real? What's actually happening? And that doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but when you think about that generation, they only were taught to just obey. They were only taught to believe. I mean, you got to think. This is the same generation that was told in the 60s, hey, we landed on the moon. Promise. Watch this video. Looks like the moon, right? Sure. We landed on the moon. Russia, y'all can go ahead and stop y'all's space race. We landed on the moon. We're good to go. And everyone was just like, yeah, okay. Yeah, all right. There was no, like, really, really in-depth stuff done. There was no, like, real test done if they proved it. There was no scrutiny. There was no Twitter people. There was no conspiracy theorists. There was no people on Reddit. It was just, yeah, man, that kind of looks like what I figured the moon would be. Oh, Neil Armstrong brought a flag up there. Oh, okay, he's doing, like, backflips or something. Oh, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. GG. Like, hey, Russia, sorry about your second place, but stuff happens. They were just kind of born and bred to believe whatever is being told to them is legit. And now things are so insane that they're walking around going, well, maybe this Fauci guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. They're walking around saying, well, maybe this coronavirus, maybe it's just not as bad, not as deadly as it sounds. Sure, people are dying, but should everyone actually still be sheltered in place? And there's just so much every single day. You can attack the coronavirus story a million different ways. We can attack it from the actual scientific way. What's it doing? How many people is it affecting? What are the numbers saying? What are the graphs saying? Where is the curve? Or we can attack it, which we mostly do, because I'm not a doctor or a scientist. We mostly attack it from just the societal kind of way, and just kind of what it's doing to humans, and what it's doing to our mental health, and what it's doing to how we face the world, and what it's doing to our customs, and what it's doing, stuff like that. I think that's much more prevalent for the common person. Yeah, we could talk about, what it actually does to your lungs, but I don't think you want that for me. I certainly don't want that for me. I mean, this weekend, I think it was this weekend, or maybe it was late last week. It all blends together. I went to my parents' house and my dad was sick, and he was on the couch, laying there, and he sounded sick. And I walk in, and no one's home, except for him. And I walk in, and I was actually looking for my sister, and he, from the couch, I heard, hello. I'm like, what the hell is that? Is this The Walking Dead? So I go and look in there, and he's, laid up in the sick position. And I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, oh, I'm just got a little virus. And 4 months ago, I'm like, okay, well, whatever. Hope you feel better. Get some soup. No big deal. I stopped dead in my tracks. And I was like, a virus? Well, what's your symptoms? And, he's like, oh, I'm just tired and just kind of nauseous. And I'm thinking, do we need to call Fauci? Do we need to call the CDC? Do I need to go do something? Do we need to get some swabs in here? Do we need to get a ventilator? What's happening? How severe is this? And right there in that moment, I thought, wow, I'm reacting way differently than how I would have reacted before the coronavirus. And that's not even if he has symptoms. This is just oh, he doesn't feel good. Boom. You immediately think differently of sickness, or you immediately think differently of germs, or you immediately think differently of whatever. I mean, back in the day, and by back in the day I mean December, people would be at work coughing, sneezing, sound like they're dying, and it was just kind of oh, well, they must have the flu. Oh, well, they must have the cold. But they're still at work. Whatever. Take some NyQuil, take some Dayquil, take them both. I don't care. Live your life. And now, if you hear somebody cough, or you hear somebody sneeze, or you hear somebody sick, get your ass in a 14-day quarantine. It's bubble boy or bust. You feel me? And so I was the only one home. So I ended up calling my sister. And I was like, where are you? And she said, I heard Dad was sick, so I left. She fled. And she didn't just flee, she took the dog. She took her dog, and when she heard my dad had a virus, she packed up, took the dog, and left. Fled the house. That's how serious the kind of like the social outlook has changed. And I think that is kind of like the crux right now of how everyone's dealing with this. Is this everyone looks at things differently. Everyone looks at the situation differently. Everyone looks at the numbers differently, the what we should do, the treatments. And now more than ever, the country is divided. The country is divided by just kind of how you are accepting this virus, is divided by where you're getting your information, and it's divided by what you think we should do. And the country, like in the past couple of years, we've seen divides, right? We've seen the cultural divides, the racial divides. Our country has gone under these issues before, specifically recently. With the Ferguson and with all that was happening, there was a real divide, and it was absolutely palpable. You could feel it. It was worrisome that people were this much at a fever pitch. And now I feel like it's getting back to that, where you have two sides of the aisle. The first side of the aisle is the side that is in full-on shut it down mode. Full-on keep your ass at home. Full-on no one's doing nothing. And then you have the other side of the aisle who's like, look, we are going to have to just move on. We are going to have to just do stuff. And those people aren't all like open the doors and whatever happens. Let God sort them out. That side to me is much more of the inform people, let them know what's going on, take it upon themselves to be responsible as far as like not touching faucets and licking their hand or whatever. But you have to let the world exist at some point. I mean, we have done this shutdown for 2 months. So at some point you have to say, we just got to go. We just got to kind of move forward again. We just got to kind of go back to work. We just got to kind of go back to life. It's not even a work thing. It's just a life thing. It's just a go outside thing. I mean, in some places like California, whatever, they're telling you not even to go outside. And I don't know. I feel, and again, if you've been listening to the podcast, I'm in South Mississippi. Our regulations are not the strongest. We had a shelter in place, but it was with a curfew, and you could leave for essentials and stuff like that. We have beaches. Like, I live in a place where the quarantine has not been that bad. With our beaches were open for a while there. Our trails were open. If you wanted to, you could take 2 hours every day and go walk the beach. So it wasn't exactly quarantine or death. Like in New York, you're in a 500 square foot apartment. In California, same thing. You're in Frisco, you're in a 500 square foot closet for 2 months straight. Like things are different in different places. And I mean, I just can't imagine the wear and tear that it's doing to people, both mentally and physically, to be just shut in. And I mean, honestly, I don't know. Like, honestly, I've kind of gone around a million different circles with this coronavirus thing. I definitely believe, and I definitely believed that at the beginning, there should have been a shelter. There should have been kind of a flatten the curve, if you will, where we all shelter in place, no one go anywhere. People will still get it for sure, but keep the essential stuff open. If you can work from home, work from home. If you can live from home, live from home, and we'll figure it out after that. This deep into it, I don't think we should be in a situation where people are still stuck in their homes. If you're 70 years old, yeah, you probably shouldn't be out and about like you were. If you have a respiratory issue or you have underlying symptoms or underlying diseases, yeah, you probably shouldn't be out and about like you were. But for the most part, it's probably now where we just kind of gotta move forward. And I'm not saying we just open this thing back up. I'm not saying we just let it rip and hope for the best. I'm saying we take a pretty overall, like, careful step back into the world, back into making things happen. because I think it's obvious that America and the world can't just stop. If you just stop, there's a lot of stuff that happens, a lot of stuff that will need to happen that just won't, like school, for example. What do you do? What do you do if there is no school? If kids can't go to college, if kids can't go to high school, if teachers can't teach, if it's all online, if it's all just remote, if everyone is house schooled basically, or homeschooled, what happens? What happens if colleges don't exist? What happens if college athletics don't exist? I mean, we're in the situation to where it's all kind of coming up to that season where scholarships are happening, and these high school seniors today or this week, they're kind of celebrating graduation, and we'll get to that at the end of the podcast as far as my advice to high school graduates. But what really no one is talking about is these high school seniors. And look, I'm not sitting here saying that I think it's a huge deal, and I think that should be our number one thing. I'm not saying that 50,000 people are dying, but what about the high school kids? So I understand that priorities are priorities, and if someone had coronavirus or someone knows someone who had coronavirus, and their take on this is very different than mine. But could you imagine being a high school senior and you're going to high school? You're just going to high school. You're doing your thing, and all of a sudden they say everything is shut down. Everything stops. You will not go to class again. You will never see your classmates again. You will just graduate. You will not play your high school sports, and you'll figure it out. What the hell? For some 17-year-old, 18-year-old to have everything, like they are on the most linear track of all time. There's nothing more linear than high school to college. They tell you what classes to go to. You go to the classes. You graduate if you do the tests that they give you. Then you apply to these colleges. You pick the colleges. There's a literal bus that drives you to the school and takes you home. It's the most literal, linear process of all time. And for these kids to go from that to it being the most non-linear thing of all time, all of a sudden these kids who have needed this linear process have no linear process. They have no schedule. They have no guidance. They don't know what's happened to them. They don't know what's happened to their friends who they've seen every single day for their entire life. They don't have any clue what their teachers are doing. They don't know what their grades are. They're applying to colleges. They don't even know what colleges are going to be open. What colleges are going to? How could you apply to a college right now? And what if you're an athlete? What if you're a high school baseball player and you're hoping your senior year is going to propel you to a college scholarship? Well, that ain't happening. So what's next? Are you now all of a sudden saying, well, damn, I had been planning to go play college baseball for the last 3 years, but that ain't happening? So now I got to plan on going to a college that is also online? I mean, these kids are thrown into a flux. They didn't have their prom. They didn't have all the high school experience for a whole generation. It's not like, oh, well, these 10% of all high school kids missed out on this. This is the whole group. This is the collective. And what is that going to do mentally to this large group of people? We're going to have to take our first little break here. I'm looking at the clock. So we're going to take our first little break, and we're going to be right back with the show. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back to the James Skrmetta Show. Thank you. This is our first DSLR break. The James Skrmetta Show is always presented by our sponsors at Matt Card, Anderson and Associates, PLLC. Let me tell you a little bit about them. Let me just think about this, okay? For a few weeks now, we've been talking about the great folk at Matt Card, Anderson and Associates, at the incredible work that they do, aggressively, litigating these insurance denials, 18-wheeler wrecks, termite litigation, business disputes, automobile crashes. We know, and you know, that the firm continues to receive excellent results year after year. Each intake complimentary. Are you kidding me? No cost to the potential client. We know that. If you want to contact them, you call 601-450-1715. Or that if you want to find them on the web, you go to machardlaw.com, mchardlaw.com. that these guys are the only firm in Mississippi to receive a 7-figure settlement. You know that. But did you know? Did you know that the opposition, these billboard lawyers, these scuzzo scumbags, the billboards that take advantage of you, did you know that they've wised up? They understand. They've listened to the podcast. And they said, okay, they're on to us. They're on to us. Matt Card, Anderson and Associates, they've locked in to sponsor the James Skrmetta Show podcast. They're on to us. They're on a whole nother level. And they've heard us say that one call, that's all is ridiculous. They've heard us say that the only place you get one call is prison. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to go to the prison system as a great barometer for how my lawyer should work, right? You don't want prison law rules, okay? So what do? They say, okay, we got to trick the people again into using us. Too many people are going to Matt Card, Anderson and Associates. Too many people are wising up. Too many people are seeing what they can do, their services, and they're choosing them. What can we do to trick the public again into thinking that we are superior, that we are who they should call if they get in an automobile wreck? So they changed their slogans. They changed it all. So now, they go from one call, that's all. And I'm not making this up. You can Google it or Firefox it. Their new slogan is one click, that's it. What? One click, that's it? Now, think about this. They're so not concerned with your well-being and you as a human that they said, I don't even want to hear their stupid voice. I don't want to hear their stupid whiny voice when they call me when they're paralyzed from the waist down from an 18-wheeler wreck and they want a settlement. I don't want to hear them complaining over the phone. I want them to click. I want them to send me an automated email. That's how they want to do it. Does that sound like something you want to do? Does that sound like something that you want to put the security of your life and your family on? Is a click? Do you want to have more clicks in a game of Minesweeper than it takes for you to get a settlement that you deserve after an automobile crash or a 18-wheeler wreck or a termite litigation? How does that sound for you? Well, you know how when you're clicking the Minesweeper and you see the little numbers on the blocks, like there's 3 bombs around here, there's 2 bombs around here. Could you imagine if that was how you were doing your lawyering? Like, okay, I can click once here. Oh my God, but I can't click 2 times over here or I won't get my settlement. So I got to click one more time here and then that'll be it. One click and that's it. That's insanity. That's insanity. Don't let your future, don't let your life be a game of solitaire. Call the folk. Go to the website. Go and call the people at Matt Card, Anderson and Associates, PLLC, 601-450-1715. I know these people personally. I back them 1,000%. They've backed the show, which shows that they are so progressive. They're so in the future. They could not be moving faster forward. That's who you want in your corner, is a firm like this who sees changes, sees trending topics or whatever, and goes that way. You don't want to go with the opposite people who are paying more money for billboards, who are paying more money for makeup for their awful ass commercials than working towards you. One call, that's all. One click, that's it. More like one click, that's shit. That's what I say. Okay? You don't want that. You want Matt Card, Anderson and Associates, PLLC. Trust me. And if you can't trust me, who can you trust? So thank you for listening to that. And thank you to Matt Card, Anderson and Associates for sponsoring the program. I appreciate that. Let's move on, yeah? After our first commercial break, our first DSLR break. So let's move on to what we were originally supposed to be talking about. So I like to have my topics up here. So we talked about all this. Let's go into this Last Dance. The Last Dance aired the last Dance, so the last episode, the finale, if you will, aired last night as we're recording this, 24 hours ago. Actually less than, about 15 hours ago. And a lot's come out of it. We're not going to talk about the whole documentary. We're not going to review it or anything. But one thing that was interesting, and I actually had a conversation about this earlier today, was so Michael Jordan's gambling addiction has been kind of a hot topic, if you will. And people have kind of wondered just how bad his gambling was. And to me, who, let's not mince words here. I have a long, storied history as a gambler, both on the streets, and by on the streets I mean in the underground, poker games at people's houses or poker tournaments, unregulated, stupid stuff, just like March Madness betting with friends or whatever. I'm not gonna incriminate myself too much on camera here, but both in that world and in the regulated world of casinos and all that. So I feel like I know what he's saying or what kind of how that's going. And I'll tell you this right now. He is 100% a gambling addict. Now, here's the question. And this is where we're going to do the deep dive on. The deep dive is, can Michael, it's twofold. Can Michael Jordan truly have a gambling problem if he has an unlimited supply of money? That's the first thing. We're going to unpack that. Second thing, what actually is a gambling addict, and can you be addicted to something but it not be a problem? This is interesting. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that you come here to find. This is the kind of stuff, the hot issues. This is the breakdown of the things that no one else is unpacking. And that's why you come to this podcast. That's why we get people to sponsor us like Macard, Anderson & Associates, PLC. So let's do the first one. Can Michael Jordan truly be a gambling addict or truly have a gambling problem, if it does not negatively affect his life? Can you say that Michael Jordan has a gambling problem? To this I say, gambling addiction and certain other addictions, the next one that comes to mind is sex addiction. Gambling addiction, I think people misconceive to be all about the money and to be all about winning or losing money. Here's my look at it. And if you really think about a gambling addict, they really are not interested in the money. Fun fact, most of the time, the best the biggest gambling addicts or whatever it is, they almost play to lose, because it turns into this thing where you're gambling because there is a tangible thing that you want to win or lose, right? Money. There's something that if you win or lose, you feel it. It sucks or it's awesome. That's money. But what they're really chasing is a feeling. They're really chasing that adrenaline. The adrenaline of when that second card is being flipped over. The moment the dice are skipping across the carpet. While the roulette wheel is spinning. The 3-hour high during a football game you bet on, rooting for your teams. You're not sitting here going like, $50, yes, $50. I love $50. I cannot wait to get my $50. It's more of this, it's more like skydiving. It's very similar to skydiving, where while you're in the air, or just let's just take adrenaline junkies. Okay, we hear that all the time. Adrenaline junkies, people that jump out of planes and go luging, and people that rock climb and all this stuff. And they always say the same thing. They get like a high from that adrenaline. And they get a high from the moment where they're closest to death. Okay? And it sounds super morbid, but if you watch documentaries like Free Solo, you can tell that the name of the game is for them to push themselves as close to the face of death as they can. They get all the adrenaline from that, and then they return to safety. Now, it doesn't always work out. Sometimes people do die. Sometimes people do lose money in gambling. It doesn't always work out. The money is just the tangible thing. And you saw it with Jordan, that it wasn't always about money. We talked about it on this podcast. He famously bet a MTV VJ that he would wager her virginity. He wasn't interested in the money. He was interested in, and he even says it on the documentary. He says, I know it wasn't on the documentary. It was a side story. There was a side story from Gary Lineker, a famous soccer player, who played golf with Jordan. And he said when they asked Jordan, what do you want to bet per hole? Jordan's response was, you tell me whatever makes you uncomfortable. And that's like the crux of gambling, is that it's not if it's not money, it's a car. If it's not a car, it's jewelry. If it's, whatever, the gambling aspect is just take this tangible thing, and that tangible thing being on the line is going to elicit a very real emotional response inside of me. And that's what gambling is. It's much less about the money. It's hard to explain unless you're in that world to really understand it. But I can promise you, the money is not a big deal at all. That the money is nice for sure, and it's, if you win a lot, it's cool. If you lose a lot, it sucks. But people gamble because of the moments in the games. I read somewhere once that they did like a measure of when your adrenaline or whatever spikes the most. I think skydiving was number 1, but number 2 was when dice were rolling on a craps table. It went in that moment, in the moment of limbo. It's almost like time freezes. So for Jordan, I do not think Jordan was gambling for money. I don't think he really cared. I think he would gamble for whatever. And money's just the easiest. Money's tangible. Money is something that everyone has. Money's something that everyone understands. You can't be like, I gamble for Lamborghinis. Say, okay, well, not everyone has Lamborghinis. I gamble for gold jewelry. Okay, well, not everyone has gold jewelry. But everyone has money. And that is the addiction, right? Is Jordan was addicted to gambling. Now, when does it become a problem? Because gambling problems, something else that's kind of funny, is someone can be a gambling addict, but if they win all the time, do they have a gambling problem? How many people do you think are in Gambling Anonymous? How many people do you think are in Gamblers Anonymous, and they say, man, dude, like, it sucks so bad. I need some help. I need to quit this. I've been making $50,000 a month on betting on baseball. Like, I just got to stop. No one does that. Like, it's only when they lose. It's only when you hear people lost their child's college funds, or they lost they embezzled from a business to pay off their debts, or they're in bad with the mob. Like, it's the only time you hear of people going to Gamblers Anonymous is when they lose. So are they addicted to, what is the problem? Do they have a gambling problem, or do they have a losing problem? And that is where, same with sex, okay? So Tiger Woods was a sex addict or whatever, and he went to sex rehab. Well, if a married man has sex with his wife 2 times a day, every single day, for 50 straight years, in the happiest marriage of all time, is he a sex addict? And is it a problem, right? Like, at what point is there an intersection of problem and addiction? And with Jordan, he's a great barometer for that. Is that, yeah, I think he was an addict, but I don't think he necessarily has a problem. I would say with anything, that if you are addicted to something, it can be gambling, it can be running, it can be working out, it can be alcohol, whatever. If you're addicted to it, there are people who are addicted to a lot of stuff. And cigarettes, for example, caffeine. There's no doubt in my mind I'm addicted to caffeine. I drink coffee. I drink at least 2 cups of coffee most of the time, upwards of 5 cups of coffee every single day of my life. I cannot tell you the last day I did not go without coffee. I have no clue. If I do not have coffee, I will go find coffee. If I'm somewhere, if I'm not, at my house, if I'm somewhere and I don't have a pot of coffee on me, I will drive, I will walk, I will order, I will do whatever I got to do to get some damn coffee. But I'm going to have coffee. Am I addicted to coffee? Probably, yes. Do I have a coffee problem? No, it doesn't affect my life at all. It's just something I do. People are addicted to working out. People are addicted to running. They cannot exist without whatever the thing is. Now, when does it become a problem? I would say, let me check my timer here. No, we're good. I would say you don't have a problem until it's affecting your life negatively. Gambling. When does a gambling addict have a problem? A gambling addict has a problem when they start to steal money to do it. When they start to take on enormous debt to do it. When they start to embezzle to do it. When they start to risk their family and their friends to do it. When they start to negatively affect their own life to do it, it becomes a problem. When does an adrenaline junkie have a problem? When they start to take over necessary risks to feel the adrenaline. When they start to really, truly risk their life to continue this. They fell off a mountain, broke their leg. The next day, they're trying to skydive. Hey, man, just relax. I would say that's when they have a problem. When does a coffee addict have a problem? When they're drinking so much coffee that they send themselves into, some kind of heart palpitations, they have to go to a hospital. When does a running addict have a problem? When they start to miss work or start to miss family functions to go on runs. When they start to, you get my point. You get my point. So I think that, yes, Jordan is an example of someone who is addicted to that feeling. He's addicted to the dice rolling, for example. That's just that's like metaphorical. He's not addicted to craps. He's addicted to the moment in limbo right there. Is it a problem? Probably not. Probably not, to be honest. Jordan probably doesn't have a problem because it can't be a problem, as weird as that sounds. Drugs are an example. If someone smokes, let's say someone in Nevada or Colorado smokes weed every day, they're probably addicted to it. But unless it negatively affects them, is addiction synonymous with problem? I say no. And that's something someone asked me today about it and what I thought. And it took me a little bit to think because I was like, well, I never thought about it like that. I never thought about the difference really between problem and addiction and how synonymous addiction is with problem. Addiction can also probably be positive. People are addicts to all kinds of things. Michael Jordan was an addict to greatness. He was an addict he was obsessed. What's the difference between obsession and addiction? On the real grand scheme of things, I know the definitions are different. I know the actual technical term, the actual technical thing are different. I get that. But if you are obsessed with being the greatest, like Michael Jordan was, if you're obsessed with making everybody eat their words, if you're addicted to the feeling of winning, you're addicted to the feeling of being the best, and you're addicted to all that, what is the difference? It's something to think about. And it's just such a... I'm not a gambling addict. I know gambling addicts, and I see them all the time at the book. And, I gamble, between me, you, and the camera, I gamble 100% legally. I gamble 100% legally. I have no weird, outstanding, bets, when Jordan's flipping coins and stuff. When Jordan's flipping coins in the hallway, or he's betting on golf games, I don't get into all that. 99% of my gambling is at the sports book at one of 5 casinos in my town. Besides that, it's a little bit of blackjack. That's about it. That's really it. But I see people, and I know people who are 100% gambling addicts, and so it can be sad to see and harrowing to see, and that's why I think it's pretty easy to see that Jordan is obsessed with that. Problem? I don't think so. So, but yeah, very fun, very, very, very interesting. That's what I like, man. That's what I like is when listeners of this podcast reach out and they say, "Hey, have you thought about this little wrinkle?" When they're thinking outside of the box. If anything in this program, we are outside of the box. We are thinking kind of outside of just the shallow, what you're first getting. We're pushing past that. Now this next topic, we've got about 9 minutes, a little less, until we have to hit our pause and do our next edit. So I'm going to try and we might have to half and half this thing. Well, we'll go into this. So in the same documentary, they talk about the flu game, and Jordan flu game is a Jordan pizza game. Now I thought this was fascinating because this is Michael Jordan. This is the finals, right? This is Michael Jordan in the NBA finals, And what does he decide to do? He decides to order a pizza. Now, he's on the road. If I was an athlete, and I've never been a pro athlete, you might be shocked to hear that. I've never been a pro athlete. So I would think if I was on the road in an NBA Finals situation, I would not be eating anywhere except from like my team cooks. I'd be cooking and preparing and all my own foods. There's no way I would trust a road team service that important the night before. I mean, that is a risk. That is a whole other level of risk. And to hear that Michael Jordan took that risk and ordered a pizza and he had food poisoning and it almost cost him the NBA Finals, that is nuts to me. I mean, that is really, really surprising to hear that he would even risk it. There is no way. And then for him to be the one ordering it, for him to be the one receiving it, if I wanted a pizza, if I was Michael Jordan, if I wanted a pizza, I would tell someone on my team, hey man, you better figure out an alias, you better go to a payphone, you better order this thing. There's a million different ways to do this. But you don't order it as Michael Jordan and have it sent up to your hotel room at whatever, 11 o'clock at night. You talk about affect the game. You got some cook at a Domino's or a Pizza Hut or wherever. You got some cook back there who is the dredge of society, flipping your pizza, sprinkling your pepperonis. And he all of a sudden is the most important player in the NBA Finals. He's impacting the NBA Finals more than anybody else could. I mean, you got to think, this cook in some Utah kitchen almost had as much of an effect on the finals as Jeff Hornacek, right? I mean, this guy, this is basically Karl Malone because he's impacting the game on that level. And it's just, that was something that I was really surprised because Jordan seems so calculated. Jordan seems like he's so careful. Jordan seems like he really, he's so obsessed with the task at hand, winning or beating people, whatever it is. The fact that he would let himself kind of deter and just say, yeah, I'm obsessed with tomorrow's finals game. Yeah, it's my legacy. Yeah, I really want to win. But I also really want a damn supreme thin crust pizza. You know, it's like, how was it? How did he have that slip? How did he have that slip in judgment? You know, to where he was like, Michael Jordan, yeah, up here at the hotel, the team hotel, yeah. I want 8 hot wings and pepperoni thin crust. What? Jordan, at least do something else. I mean, I would think Michael Jordan I would think the Bulls team has a chef that could make a pizza, you know, versus him ordering one. I also thought it was funny how it came out that Jordan was the only one that ate the pizza because when he got the pizza, he spit on it and told his teammates, this is my pizza, y'all aren't getting any of it. Talk about karma biting you in the ass. I mean, if that's not karma, I don't know what is. First of all, that's disgusting. Like, even if it's my food, I don't want to spit on it. You know, if I got a fresh za, if I got a fresh thin and crispy, and I'm like, man, I cannot wait to crush this pepperoni za. You know what would make that a lot less appetizing? If I spit on it. Even though it's my spit, I don't want my spit on it. You know, like to just spit on my damn pepperoni pizza and just start eating it up. That's some psychotic stuff, man. That is absolutely insane in the membrane. It really is. But I was, I'll tell you this too. I've had the flu and I've had food poisoning. I think I've felt worse on food poisoning. I had food poisoning. The only time I've ever had food poisoning, I had a can of boiled peanuts, letting my Mississippi hang out, but I had a can of boiled peanuts. And last time I ever had boiled peanuts, it was the most sick I've ever been in my entire life. I woke up, or in the middle of the night, I was sweating, drenched, I was pouring sweat. I was also freezing at the same time. I couldn't, it was the worst I've ever felt. 100%. Worst I've ever felt. And I thought I was dying. I was ready for the sweet embrace of death. My insides were burning up. My outsides were burning up. I was just losing weight, if you know what I mean, from every possible way, if you know what I mean. And the next day I went to the doctor. I actually felt kind of good the next day. And I went to the doctor and I said, Doc, I think this is it. I think I'm dying. I'm ready to die. Please put the plug in me so you can pull it out. And the doc, kind of looked me over, went through my symptoms, did some tests, and said, we think you got food poisoning. You're good. And I said, that's impossible, Doc. I am dying. I have already signed the will. I am prepared. Please do not make this go any longer. Shoot me in the face. And they said, no, man, you're good. You are 100% healthy. Some bad peanuts. Bad peanuts. I'll never forget it. It was the worst time of my life. So if Jordan overcame food poisoning to play that kind of a game, it sounds like the GOAT to me. All right, our second DSLR break is coming up here. So we are going to take our DSLR break number 2, and I'll be right back. Are you not entertained? DSLR break number 2 is over. We are back at it for the show. Man, we still have a lot to talk about. This show is going to be super long. Jesus. Okay, I might have to take some of this stuff off because we're already at like an hour. Okay, the next topic, huge news coming out of the NFL. Absolutely huge news. So the NFL is voting on minority incentives for teams to hire minority coaches and GMs. This story blew my mind when I first read it. I thought it was from The Onion. I thought this story was fake. And then it's true. So before we get into my take on it, let me explain it to you. I'm going to read it directly from the NFL. So the incentives are, first, you can improve your third round selection by 16 picks. 10 picks for a minority GM and 6 picks for having a minority coach. You can add a fourth round compensatory pick by retaining the minority quarterback coach after 1 year. You can add a third round compensatory pick by having minority candidates on your team leave for a similar position with another team. Now the NFL needs, I think it's 24 out of 32 teams to vote yes to put this through. And this is something you talk about, be careful with. This is something we got to be real careful with because there's a lot of different caveats here. But I'm well prepared to navigate this. I'm well prepared to take you through each and every one of these harrowing turns to get to the final conclusion. First of all, directly, like bam, boom, punch in the face, first thing we're getting at, immediately on the subject. I think 100% that minority coaches are not getting a fair shake at this. I do think that. I think that's a lot. I think that is a lot of the case in a lot of different things. And minorities, women, or whatever. I think that it is impossible to say that there is true fairness across the board in things like Hollywood, sports, tech, whatever, high business. It's impossible to believe that there's just full fairness. I think we can all agree on that there probably is some corruption at some level. And there probably always has been. It's simple. There's a famous phrase. It's not what you know, it's who you know, right? That is corruption. That is people not getting a fair shake. That is people not getting hired due to their merit, but who you know. A connection, a friend, a pal, a favor. Okay, that's a problem. True. It's really a problem whenever there's only 32 of those jobs that exist, right? There's only 32 NFL teams. Most of NFL coaches are this weird kind of carousel of the same people. Like I'm just going to name like Jeff Fisher, for example. Jeff Fisher was an NFL coach for like 20 years. Always had a job. How? Jeff Fisher was like a 500 coach forever. How was he always bouncing between these positions? You always see it. You always see where there's a coach who it's like he just can't leave the league. He will always find a job, some deservingly. Andy Reid is probably one of the best coaches in the NFL. If he quit or if he got fired from the Chiefs, he'd be hired tomorrow. So there are some coaches that their merit is deserving, all right? But there's some coaches that there just isn't, and they shouldn't be in the league. They shouldn't be always employed. And you wonder how. I'll tell you how, because they know someone. Their agent knows someone or they know someone. Same in Hollywood. You have people who are always in movies, always in TV shows. How the hell are they getting these opportunities? because they know somebody, because they're connected, because they have a friend. All right? And there's a lot of other stuff that goes into these hirings. A majority of the NFL is owned, and by the majority, I want 100%. Not 100% because there are some minorities, but a majority of the NFL is owned by very wealthy, old, rich, white guys. It's no mistake that they want to hire who they feel most comfortable with. An old, rich, white guy is probably not going to feel the most comfortable with a young minority as their GM. And the owner and the GM talk a lot. It's just like that in business. It's like that in the office place. It's like that all over the place. And I'm not saying that is like like 100% wrong. You know, like I understand that. I understand the idea that an owner would, if they're going to trust their billion-dollar corporation with someone, that they want it to be someone that they're most comfortable with. Understood. Again, not saying it's right or wrong. Now, here's where this thing, I think, gets a little nuts. First, it is good that the NFL is making these incentives. It's good that, or maybe not these incentives, but it's good that the NFL is tackling this. The NFL is saying, guys, we got to do something. Now, it's bad that it's this bad. It's bad that it's so bad that the NFL knows, damn, nothing's going to happen unless we put out these incentives. Nothing is going to happen unless we bribe these owners into employing minority GMs, minority coaches. That's bad. And it's bad that the NFL recognizes that it's that bad. You know, like that's how you know it's a real problem. Is that the NFL is not just telling these owners in the back alleys, look, man, look, can we try and hire other people? Can we try and hire other people than that dude, than that same guy who's been hired by 20 teams? Do you mind going and looking at a different person? Can we just hire who you think is the appropriate candidate, please? The fact that it's past that is really bad. And I think what would have been a better way around this is instead of doing this incentive system, is to tell coaches or tell the NFL, whatever, that you can only hire coaches who meet like a prerequisite. Like they have to be a coordinator. They have to be a coordinator or they have to be something. You know, whatever it is. Because that way you won't get, like Cliff Kingsbury is someone who's been brought up as he had no experience. He was not qualified to be an NFL head coach. He actually did a pretty good job at Arizona, so it's kind of hard to say. But they're upset that people are getting passed up because minorities are holding coordinator positions, but they do not get the opportunity to be a head coach. And they're getting passed up. And so I think maybe if there was a prereq system where you have to be a coordinator, you have to do this for a certain amount of time, you have to do this, you can't just come out of nowhere and be a coach. At the same time, that has problems because it's like, okay, well, if the best coach in college football wants to be an NFL head coach, he shouldn't have to go be a defensive coordinator for 2 years. You know, so I get that too. And that's why this makes it so hard. It's hard in every aspect. It's hard in Hollywood. It's hard in sports. It's hard in business to say, I trust you to make the ethical, correct decision 100% of the time. That's just not going to happen. That's just not going to work. People aren't going to do that. And sometimes what is the ethical decision, you know, what is the best decision, it's not like the worst thing ever or not the most despicable thing ever to go against that. If you're hiring someone for the CEO position of your company and your best friend is applying for the job and he's 90% qualified, but someone else who you do not know at all is also applying, and they are 96% qualified, and you hire your friend, it's like ethically, yeah, that wasn't the right decision, but maybe it balances out because maybe you're more comfortable with your friend, you have a rapport with your friend, maybe that balances out that 7%. Like, there's a lot that goes into this. On the surface, people should be hired for their merit. People should be hired because of their qualifications. People should be hired the best at each position. Like that, 100%. 100%. From president all the way down, you should be hired 100% on your ability to do that job. NFL coaches are no different. That should be the 32 best coaches on the planet. That's it. It shouldn't be who you know. It shouldn't be where you went to school. It shouldn't be if you're buddies with the GM or the owner or whatever. It shouldn't be that. 1,000,000% agreed. It should be merit only. But it ain't. And it's never going to be. And it ain't in anything. You think these actresses are getting put... And we saw it with the Harvey Weinstein. How many actors and actresses are put into positions strictly because they slept with a producer? They slept with a mega agent. You know, how many people's careers were altered because they lied down with someone? I mean, that is awful, right? That's terrible. It's terrible in every single phase. Every facet of it is awful. It's awful for the actor or actress to have to do that, to have to lie down. It's also incredibly unethical for them to say, well, I can get this position if I sleep with this man or woman. I'm going to do it. It's awful for the person in power to impose that. It's awful for the person who didn't get the job because they didn't lie down with whoever. It's bad on every front, but it's humanity to a fault. It really is. So there is not a utopian thing where you can say, okay, we're flipping a switch here. Everyone is going to make every decision fully ethically. We're all locked in. I understand it's not going to happen. Now let's go to the actual incentives. I am not a minority. I am a white fella, middle class, American. That's it. Okay, so I'm not gonna pretend like I understand how this would feel as a minority. But I am going to guess, and I'm going to give what I think is how I would feel if I was a minority. I feel like this cheapens the whole process. And I personally would not want to be one of these incentive selections. If I was named head coach of the Bengals because I'm a minority and my team is getting a compensatory pick, or my team is moving up from the 7th pick to the back end of the 2nd round, and I'm being used to game the system to help a rebuilding process because my team can get picks because of my hire, that reverses everything. That goes all the way back around. We're going down that rabbit hole, but if you think about a lot of stuff in life, I keep checking my timer, so ignore if I have to keep checking this, but I'm just making sure we're staying on time. When you look at radicals, right radicals and left radicals on the political spectrum, radical ideas go in a circle. They don't go in a straight line. So when people say you're far right and you're far left, if you go on a line, it looks like the furthest opinions are the far right and the far left, the radical right and the radical left, okay? Really, in reality, radical ideas go in a circle. So if you start here at neutral and you go left and right, the furthest right and the furthest left are actually the closest to each other. And the only real difference between a radical left and a radical right is one thing that's different. But their vitriol and their radicalism, that's all the same. Same as going to the North Pole. If you go at a certain point, if you keep going and you get to the North Pole, once you go past the North Pole, you're now south. So there is a point, into what I'm saying, that sounded like I was going off on a tangent. What I'm saying is there is a point to where you go so far with something that you actually loop around and you start to do what you are trying to stop. In this situation, they're pushing so hard for the incentives to incentivize proper hiring and proper jobs being filled by the right candidates that they've gone so far with it, they've looped around to where now they are incentivizing basically people to get hired not on their merit. And they're getting hired for people, or they're they're incentivizing people not to get hired because they're the best for the job, but because of this weird program that's basically like a game show or something where you do these tasks and you win these prizes. So now it's like, okay, well, they could be making these hires strictly for these incentives. Well, that doesn't fix anything. That's the exact same damn thing. That's the exact same situation that now we're just flipping it. Like now instead of being radical right, we're being radical left. Instead of now being most north, we're south. So they're like eliminating the medium. They're eliminating that sweet spot where they really should be. They're eliminating that, like do the fair thing, do the right thing. They're eliminating that and erring on the side of just one of the two extremes of, okay, we'll keep it how it is, and the good old boys club and the connections and all that stuff, or we'll bribe you to do this other side. Like, that's just not it, man. That's just not it. I think it just cheapens everything. If I was a minority coach, I would feel really shitty about getting hired, knowing like, well, damn, the only reason they hired me was because I came with a 3rd round draft pick. I mean, that feels bad as a person. It feels bad, like, oh, they're only hanging out with me because I have a cool car. So that sucks. Like, they have an incentive to hang out with you. They have an incentive to be your friend. That incentive is your car, right? Like, it's obvious. That sucks on every level. That sucks as an elementary school kid. Why are they hanging out with you? Because my parents are rich, so I have cool toys? So their incentive to hang out with me is that they can play with cool toys? How does that make kids feel? It makes kids feel really bad. It makes everyone feel really bad. Celebrities talk about it all the time, that once they get rich or once they get famous, their group of friends gets bigger, and it feels like garbage because they don't know who actually likes them. They don't know who actually wants to be their friend. Same with these coaches. I mean, how do you know if an owner really has your back or an owner really trusts you? Or are you just the walking embodiment of a 3rd round pick? Can you have full confidence in your ability or what you have going on? If that's the case, can you truly do your job if you know that you're just a cog in a machine to get a prize? I just think that it cheapens everything. I think it just makes everything worse. I think it just kind of, I don't know. It just isn't. It isn't what it should be, and it makes it feel scummy. It makes it feel like gross, unethical people are doing even more gross, unethical things, but now just to get greedy little prizes. It just shows how greedy these owners are, and the NFL is that they, or not the NFL. The NFL is trying to stop this, but like these owners in this group that they're publicly just saying, okay, guys, the only way we can do this is if we bribe these people. And then you're going to see this huge swing. Like let's just say that they pass this. Let's say they vote on this and it goes through. And let's say next year you see 27 minority head coaches. And every team has a compensatory pick. And every team has moved up in the draft. They've all moved up so that really no one's moved up. Then is it like, yay, change? Or is it like, wow, this sucks. Like, this is super weird. I feel like it'd be super weird. I feel like it'd be like, oh, this is gross. Like, this is disgusting. We have all these people trotting out these minority hires because they can get these draft picks. And now that everyone has the draft picks, no one has the draft picks, It's just like this gross circle. And I don't have an answer for you. I don't have an answer for, oh, just do it like this. I think if you do like a prereq system or something, maybe that's better, but this ain't it, Chief. This ain't it, man. This ain't it. It's been a long podcast. We're like an hour 10 in right now, I think. And we are solidly, we still have like 6 or 7 topics. So I may just bust this thing into 2 podcasts for y'all this week because I don't think y'all are going to listen to an hour and a half or 2 hour podcast. So I may just do this one, release this for Monday night, Tuesday morning, and then we'll probably do one on like release on Thursday or Friday or something. But we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We still have like 5. We still have like 5 things to do here. So we'll wrap this one up. I'm going to end this with graduation. So graduation is, being celebrated right now with people. All the celebrities are all giving their graduation speeches and advice to high school people and graduates, and all the stars like Lil Xan, letting Logan Paul, Rice Gum, all the people that we really look up to, Matt Ox, Tekashi 6ix9ine, Doja Cat, like all the people who really make up what this world I think is. The people who we really need in this moment, the people who we really should listen to, KSI and Meghan McCain and every Billie Eilish, the people who really impact the community. So I thought I would throw in my 2 cents, and if you're a high school graduate listening to this, which I know you're not because I look at the demographics, and the demographics show that a majority of my audience is from 28 to 35, and by majority I mean like 80%. So I understand there's not a lot of that going on, but maybe you have a younger brother or a sister who's graduating. You would like to instill some of this advice. What I would tell someone graduating high school is that, or graduating college, I guess too. It's just general advice. But now this is the time for you to where before everything was, you were told you were on a track. You had to do these things. You had to go to English class at 3 o'clock. You had to go to lunch at noon. You had to go to baseball practice at this time, at this place, with these teammates. You have to do these things. The important thing to remember at this point of your life, and the thing that takes a lot of people a long time to remember or to understand, is that your life is your life. And you are the designer and you are the director of your life. And your happiness and your career or your success or your family, is up to you. The linear nature of life, the linear nature of the world is over now for you. And if you attempt to get on a track, and if you attempt to let other people make your decisions, or if you let other people design your life, you will be unhappy. And you will not reach your potential. So do whatever makes you happy. Make your decisions not by what you think society wants you to do. This isn't a game of life. You're not supposed to look at a stack of jobs, or look at a stack of houses, or look at a stack of places you want to live, or places to live, and choose 1 out of 20 cards. That's over with. When I went to a high school, I graduated with 49 people. And back then, the idea was, you just marry somebody from your class, or your best friend is someone from this class, or you have to work in a business that's in this city. Well, all of a sudden, when you break that down, you're marrying from a pool of 20 people. Your best friend is from a pool of 30 people. Your businesses in your city are from a pool of however many, with a max ceiling of this salary and a max, your categories are shrunk. What I would say is design your future how you want to do it. Live the life that you want to live. Be the star of your own movie. Exist in your own reality. We are on this space rock for a very small amount of time. Do what makes you the most happy, 100%. This is not a pre-designed game. You don't have to color in between the lines. You can color whatever color you want, and you can draw whatever you want. So do not let someone pigeonhole you or make you go on this track. That's what I would say to anyone graduating, anyone going to that next step of their life, is to take charge, live proactively, live aggressively. Every day that you wake up, every day you exist, try and live however you want to live aggressively. Do what you want, push forward, be proactive in your life. Don't sit back and wait for life to happen, because it won't. And if it does, it's probably because someone else is directing your life, and that shit sucks. That's my advice to anyone graduating, or really just anyone in general looking for advice from me, a guy sitting in his spare bedroom doing podcasts and videos. So who better to get advice from than me. Then maybe, I guess, Lil Dicky or Logic, I guess, if you want to get advice from them. Or Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey would probably be a good one too. But thank you guys for listening. Man, wow, I can't get over how easy this was to just rip through this. I guess all that training of doing 6 hours of podcast last week has me just going dumb. But thank you. I appreciate it for listening. Remember, if you do enjoy this podcast, please rate and review it. 5 stars would be nice. If you are watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. We have a ton of content and a lot more content to come out. So be on the lookout for all of that, guys. Tell a friend, tell a family member. If they're looking for a podcast, if they're looking for really the best in the business, to look no further than this right here. My voice just cracked. That was embarrassing. I'm 30 years old, and voice cracks still happen. So thank you. I will see you again this week for the next podcast. I appreciate it, guys. This has been the James Skrmetta Show.